CBS 6 News starts now.
Thousands upon thousands of young people gather in cities across the country, calling for an end to gun violence.
We are going to be a great generation.
The response from the lawmakers they're trying to reach, and the call for change coming from the Capital Region as well.
The Second Amendment will say what the regulations have to change.
Tens of thousands of students, parents, activists, and children are gathered in the nation's capital right now demanding safer schools and legislation that they say will address gun violence in America. The March for Our Lives movement was organized in part by survivors of last month's school shooting in Parkland, Florida. This was the scene today in Parkland. People gathered at the same park where so many came with flowers, candles, and signs to remember the 17 students and faculty members who were killed by a former student last month. The march was held in a number of cities across the U.S. This is in Houston, where thousands honored the victims of the school shootings at a rally at Tranquility Park. The city's mayor recently announced the creation of a commission to end gun violence to consider solutions at a local level. This march has spread across the globe as well. This is London, where thousands of people stood in solidarity with the marchers across the Atlantic outside the U.S. Embassy. Students held banners objecting to U.S. gun laws and laid down in front of the building in silent protest. Now, the calls for change were heard outside the state capitol in Albany, too. Locally, high school students teamed up with activists to organize a rally and a march down Washington Avenue. Lindsay DeLucia was there. She's live in studio with us tonight. Lindsay.
Well, Tori, elected officials, activists, and students made their voices heard in Albany's West Capitol Park this morning with universal messages pushing what they call common sense gun laws and urging young people to vote.
There are so many people here that I can't even see everyone, and that makes me so proud.
Shaker High School senior Asma Bala spoke to a large crowd in front of the Capitol this morning.
No matter what age you are, I want to assure you that you can make a difference. I don't even have a driver's license, and I started a protest, so...
A protest that she and 4 other students started to coincide with today's National March for Our Lives movement. Support came from many directions today, including educators.
Your teachers believe in you, that we love you, and that we're proud of you.
Elected officials.
I couldn't be more proud to see this extraordinary crowd here today.
Enough is enough. Not one more. Never again. Thank you for raising your voices.
And from local activist groups.
Seeing you here today shows me that this is not a moment. This is a movement.
Moms Demand Action, along with the Women's March of Albany, co-sponsored the event. But at the forefront were the students, including Bala.
No American should have the capability of killing hundreds of people in 1 minute.
Begging to ban semi-automatic weapons and for stronger mental health resources.
We shouldn't even be standing here now. This shouldn't be a problem, but yet here we are, and now we have to fix this. I am tired of explaining to people why I don't deserve to be shot. I am tired of hearing that I don't know what I'm talking about.
All took to the street to march around the Capitol with signs spreading the message that they won't back down.
Together, as a community and as a country, we're going to make change happen. Thank you.
We reached out to the New York Rifle Association president for comment on today's march, but did not hear back. Tori?
Lindsay, thank you. From New York's capital to the nation's capital, a sea of people gathered in Washington, D.C. for the main March for Our Lives rally today, including some of the survivors of the Parkland shooting. One of those teens, Emma Gonzalez, has become one of the faces of this movement. She read the names of her classmates who were killed last month, then stood silently for 6 minutes, the length of time she says it took the gunman to attack her school.
About 20 seconds. In a little over 6 minutes, 17 of our friends were taken from us, 15 were injured, and everyone, absolutely everyone, in the Douglas community was forever altered. Everyone who was there understands. Everyone who has been touched by the cold grip of gun violence understands.
Among the youngest people to speak to this crowd was 9-year-old Yolanda Renee King. She's the granddaughter of Martin Luther King, Jr.
My grandfather had a dream that his 4 little children will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of
about their character. I have a dream that enough is enough.
She then led the crowd in a chant saying that she and other protesters will be part of a great generation. In New York City today, a normally busy stretch of Manhattan fell silent as the names of the shooting victims were read there. Thousands of people attended the march in the Big Apple, including Paul McCartney, who says that the death of John Lennon motivates him to march to end gun violence. Governor Andrew Cuomo applauded the young activists behind this movement, saying that the gun control they're demanding makes sense. The governor also told marchers they need to sustain this momentum.
I'm not confident that something happens tomorrow. And what these young people have to understand, and this movement has to understand, one day doesn't do it. Because the NRA doesn't go away, and their campaign contributions don't go away. So what we have to say to this movement is, you have to stay with it. One day is not enough.
Now, student activists are already planning another protest next month. That one will be held on April 20th, the anniversary of the Columbine High School shooting. Today's rally also brought up some tough questions about how to proceed if gun laws are changed. National correspondent Christine Frizzell reports.
It was a unified group rallying around a cohesive message.
I'm here to support this movement. I'm so ashamed of my generation and that we did nothing.
That there are meaningful and thoughtful gun control laws that are created and enforced across the country.
Better gun control now.
Many here say it's not about taking guns away from most people.
We're not trying to take away any guns, and even if we were, isn't that worth it if it saves some lives?
Hundreds of thousands of people out here today, many calling for more restrictions on who can and cannot buy guns. Surrounding them, a whole lot of security and a whole lot of guns.
They're security personnel and they're protecting us.
The perimeter of the March for Our Lives marked by security trucks and police officers, a necessary part of just about any event in Washington and across the country, where free speech is often protected by armed personnel. For some, a constitutional conundrum in a free society.
The Second Amendment was written in a totally different era when they needed to control muskets. Now we have, assault rifles.
Waiting periods and ban on assault weapons and semi-automatic rifles and registries of guns just like we have of cars and license plates.
The NRA stands firm in its commitment to gun rights.
Passing new gun control laws won't protect our kids because criminals willing to commit murder will never obey the law.
As calls grow for change, more complicated questions emerge about the best way to balance that change with the laws of the land. In Washington, I'm Christine Frizzell reporting.
Florida Senator Marco Rubio released a statement on Twitter about today's protests. He said that while he commends and respects those who were marching, he does not agree with the solutions they propose, saying, quote, "Many other Americans do not support a gun ban. They, too, want to prevent mass shootings, but view banning guns as an infringement on the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens that ultimately will not prevent these tragedies." As we continue to cover this national debate, you can always read and view our reports online at cbs6albany.com. Coming up next, an important cause has one local man on the verge of a cross-country bike trip. The message he hopes to send to families from Florida to Oregon.